And we are back, unfortunately. Welcome back to another episode of the Deep Press Cincinnati Sports Fan Podcast. I'm Jesse, and that's Tommy. We're here to recap probably the best football game of the season so far. Only 5 games into the year, but Bengals-Ravens, Sunday. If you get a chance to watch the game, if you're an offensive fan, oh, this was your game. If you're a defensive fan, hell no, this wasn't your game. What a football game. Unfortunately, the Bengals lose 41-38 in overtime. The Bengals are now 1-4 in the season, and now a lot of people are saying season's done, on to 2025, or, well, there's still a little hope. The optimistic fans, which I'm not. I've heard so many of them today saying, we still have a shot. Now we're in the easier part of the schedule, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, yeah, believe what you want to believe, okay? Yeah, I'm a realist, okay? I tell how it is, and I specifically told them, yeah, but 1-4, that's a tough hill to climb. Tommy, how you doing, sir?
Outside of that game, I'm doing well. It's a bummer that game was probably one of the better games we'll see in the regular season NFL this year for everybody besides Bengals fans.
Yeah,
But
that was, yeah.
I will say the Instant Reaction podcast I listened to this morning as I was, first getting up and getting ready to start work and stuff like that, and don't even need coffee. Listen to that. Got all the energy I needed just from that.
I told some people, there was like 2 of my coworkers, they're like, wow, like you really laid in there. Like you were saying the F word, and some didn't appreciate that. And I'm like, this is my podcast. I'm allowed to voice out my emotions. I've been doing this for 6 years. I've been doing podcasts since in the beginning when they first started in 2016. I can do whatever I want. Okay? That was 10 minutes after the football game. My heart rate was up. I wasn't shaking, but I was just like so furious at what happened on that overtime session. Yeah, so usually we start off the podcast doing our offense and defensive thoughts. You told me today that we need to do a venting session, more like a therapy session, and just get out whatever we need to get out about this football team as a whole. And that's what we're going to do first on this podcast. So bear with us. There's going to be emotion, but I think that now we're 25 hours after the game. I think our anger is relatively calm, but we're still pissed off. I'm still mad about it as a whole. Listen, last week in the podcast, I told you about Zach Taylor, that I'm officially done. I know you've been done with Zach Taylor for the longest time. I believe, 2 years ago you said you were done, or when you first started?
It's been a while. I gave him a little bit more of a chance.
Right.
The year that we went to the Super Bowl, but even that year, I was not entirely sold and think that he was kind of carried by not his decision making.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree. I agree on that. And I said in the Instant Reaction podcast that I was really just like done with Zach, and I was just upset with his coaching decision and the overtime session of the football game on Sunday. And what made me really mad is that he was playing to lose. And I hate that as a head coach or any head coach in any professional sport. If you're playing to lose, then why are you the head coach? Seriously. And I like Zach Taylor. I'm going to clarify this. I do like Zach Taylor, the person. Okay? He's done some great things in the city. He's brought their locker room culture, all that shit. Great. Love that for him and love that for the team and the city. However, it gets to a point where it's like, okay, dude, you can't call games, and especially you can't call games in the most pressure situations. And the overtime session where the Bengals were gifted a fumble by the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson, and Jermaine Pratt picks up the fumble. You get good field position in the, 50, 45-yard line? I'm thinking to myself, okay, we're going to win this football game. We're going to be 2-3, and we're going to get this season back on track. The first play, they run the ball. Now, Zach Taylor in his presser after the game said that, well, good job by Joe Burrow. He checked out of that play, and it was a run play. I saw the replay. I saw the clip where the formation was. That was clearly a run play from the beginning. I don't see there ain't no Joe Burrow check out the play. Hell no. You were running that ball. You were running the football. But say this, Zach. Say that you were happy that Joe checked out of that in the run play, right? What about the next two plays? What about the next two plays? No yardage on those two plays. Wait, first, no. The second play, you run it, you call timeout, you run again, and then wait, no. No. Let's run it back. You run it twice, then you call timeout to ice Evan McPherson, and then he misses the 53-yard field goal. I know it was a bad snap, but you know what? Shout out to Ryan Rico. He actually, for how bad of a snap is, he got that as best as he can. But McPherson missed the field goal. Like, I'm not gonna blame the Rico or McPherson for that. That shit just happens. But you should not be kicking a 53-yard field goal in that position. Period. And let me go back to the 49ers game in 2021, okay? You're taking the ball out of Joe Burrow's hand, ironically, in overtime. In that football game, the second half, that man cooked. I was at that football game, by the way. That man was just throwing lasers to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I'm like, we're going to come back and win this football game. The Bengals were down by 15 points in the fourth quarter. And then Joe Burrow happened. And then overtime happened. Zach decided, after the big play by T. Higgins, they're like, now let's start running the ball with Joe Mixon. So you're going to take the ball out of Nine's hands like that. And then you proceeded to lose the game. And then after the game, you said, yeah, you know what? I should have just, kept the ball in Joe's hands in that situation, in that magnitude of the game. Pretty much Zach said that he owned up to it, which, okay, I was fine. He said that'll never happen again. 3 years later, the same shit. Seriously, Joe Burrow threw for 5 touchdowns, threw for 392 passing yards. He had 1 interception. Okay, don't think it was his fault. T. Higgins, 2 touchdowns. Jamar Chase, 193, 2 touchdowns. You don't let your 3 best players go out and win the game or just give you more yardage to set McPherson up for an easy attempt with less yardage. Because the fact that he was content with a 53-yard field goal, I know McPherson in his past has done it. Okay, he's proven. However, he can miss it. He can. And I didn't get that at all. I really did not. And I just hated that. You ruined Joe Burrow's best game when it comes to touchdowns. 5. T. Higgins and Jamar Chase combined for 19 catches for 276 and 4 touchdowns.
Jeez.
But you didn't trust them in the most important time of the game. You're just like, I'm going to run the football. Which, by the way, the running game in the first half was okay. And in the second half, the Ravens made adjustments, and the running game was non-existent. So why now you try to run the football in that magnitude of game? That's just a lot of people are saying Zach Taylor is a fucking coward. Sorry for my language, but I'm just going to say what it is. Even some media people are saying, wow, that's some cowardly shit. It is. Someone asked Zach about, is this the most deflating loss of his tenure? That's what Zach Taylor said. People can write us off if they want to. I'm not done enough to do that. Dude. Okay, I get that. You're not going to say, oh, the season's over after this loss. But, dude, you're the reason why the Bengals lost this football game.
Like, that didn't even answer the question.
I know. Like, I was like, are you serious? Like, okay, Zach, whatever. He said, as soon as he came to the podium, he was just like, I'm sick to my stomach. Got to find a way to win. Okay, maybe get the fuck out of your superstar player's way and let them go win the game. Okay? Simple as that. Like, Joe was a fucking animal on third and short and mediums. Why? Because I don't know. Maybe because of the play calling and first and second downs. And the Bengals were faced with a lot of third downs, especially like third and longs. And Joe Burrow was like, okay, fine. I'm just going to, fuck it. I'm going to do it by myself. He cooked. Play calling first and second down. It's not good. And that's why the Bengals are always in third and longs, but they're actually one of the best in the NFL when it comes to converting that, especially in this game. But Joe was on fire. He had to go on demon mode in this game. And he did after the first quarter. Zach said there was a pass call when the Bengals got the ball back, but Joe did a good job of checking out. Yeah, cool, whatever, Zach. We believe what you want to believe on that. And then let's talk about the Joe Burrow interception with about 4 minutes left. Okay, listen. I don't think the Bengals should have been throwing, especially in a 4 minute situation where you want to like wind down the clock. I believe the Ravens the Baltimore had no timeouts, right? I'm pretty sure.
They might have had one left, but it
Okay.
was like 3 minutes ish left and maybe a timeout. They might
Okay.
have just used their last one too.
Okay. Yeah. And I know the running game didn't do shit in the second half, but I was thinking let's try to at least run maybe once just to waste clock and have the Ravens use the timeout. But instead, you throw a slant pass, Burrow and Chase. Marlon Humphrey made a good play, and I think Jamar Chase said that it was a shitty route. It wasn't the best route, and I think Joe was expecting Jamar Chase to catch that. If he would have done that, that would have been a first down. More clock would have come after the clock, and I think the Bengals would have probably won the game. Maybe. We'll see. But I think a lot of people are saying that, oh, that's the reason why the Bengals lost the game is because of that interception. I'm like, the Bengals lose by 30 plus points if Joe Burrow doesn't go ballistic in this game. So I don't want to hear about the interception. I've been hearing that today. I'm like, this man threw for 392 and 5 touchdowns, and you think the Bengals lost because of that pick? What? I was like, okay, without Joe Burrow, this game is a blowout. It's the blowout when the Ravens and Bengals played in 2019 when Lamar Jackson did that fucking spin on Nick Vigil, the linebacker. It's that type of game. Like, what are we talking about? And the fault for this game is Zach, Lou and Arumo, and just the defense as a whole. And I have a hot take right now. I don't think this is a hot take, but I think some people will say this is a hot take. Honestly, I'll take Marvin Lewis back right now. Is that a hot take?
It is, because I don't think Marvin can coach, or else he would have gone somewhere else as a coordinator after he left, but he's like never even been a coordinator since he left us.
Sure. However,
I get the sentiment of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Though.
Marvin's more aggressive than Zach Taylor.
And he's defensive minded, so he wouldn't be in these same scenarios.
True. But I think he would have trusted Joe Burrow. Now, obviously, in the Andy Dalton era, it was kind of hard for Marvin Lewis to trust Andy Dalton because you know how Andy is, especially in pressure situations, aka the playoffs. Like, you can't blame him for that. However, if Marvin had Joe, and in that situation in the Ravens game yesterday, I'm pretty sure he would have been like, go out there and win the game, but not run the football. What the fuck? Fuck out of here. And the front office to blame for this, okay? You didn't pay your star players. You let Jesse Bates go. You let DJ Reader go. Not paying T. Higgins, not paying Jamar Chase, and then training camp holdout drama shit. That was affecting the locker room. And then shitty drafting from 2021 to 2023. This is where the Bengals are right now in 2024. Because of all that. Oh my gosh. And then Zach was asked about the fumble recovery by Jermaine Pratt and the reason why he did the 3 run plays. He said, if a sack or a hold, if all that happened, we're out of field goal range. And I'm thinking to myself, so you pretty much played to lose, like I said in the beginning. Excuse my language, but you pretty much coached like a bitch. And yeah, just pretty much stay a bitch when it comes to coaching. I'm not calling him a bitch as a person, but when it comes to coaching, that's pretty much bitch tendencies. Like, come on now. It's the truth. Well, without Jamar Chase, without Joe Burrow, the Super Bowl, it's the 2021 Super Bowl run, as much as we loved it, it's because of Joe Burrow and Chase and how the defense, T. Higgins, and how the defense did in the playoffs. I don't think that's all coaching. That wasn't him. Without all that, Zach Taylor's not a head coach in the NFL. Period. You lasted 1 year at UC. You were bad. You're lucky to be under the helm of Sean McVay with the Los Angeles Rams. Nobody wanted the Bengals job after Marvin Lewis left. So the Bengals at that point were like, fuck it, Zach Taylor, all right, come to Cincinnati. And then you were lucked in with Joe Burrow because you almost blew that game against the Miami Dolphins. Remember in 2019, the last game of the season, when the Bengals almost made the worst comeback in NFL history because they would have won that game. We would probably had Tua, and the Dolphins would have got Joe Burrow, and then everything would have changed. You're lucky, okay? You're lucky. And here we are right now. Here we are right now with Zach Taylor. It is what it is, and I feel like if Bengals fans are still thinking that, oh, he can get us off the slide and he can get us over the hump, you're delusional as hell. You really are, because Zach Taylor's a head coach because of players. And I'm not saying he can't coach. It's just he can't coach this football team, especially with how talented this football team is. This is a top 3 offense in the NFL. Hell, it's probably the best offense in the NFL, and you're 1-4. And I think people are saying, fire Lou Anarumo. Okay, if you want to fire Lou Anarumo, take Zach Taylor with you. And I hate the notion people are saying that, oh, Lou Anarumo, he can't develop players. Really? I'm sorry. So he developed Jesse Bates. Now he's like an all-pro in Atlanta. He developed, not developed Von Bell, but Von Bell came from the Saints. So the Saints were like, nah, Von Bell, he's a little bit slow. He got Von Bell paid in Carolina, and then Von Bell comes back, and he's old now. Logan Wilson, I think turned out pretty good. Jermaine Pratt turned out pretty good. Akeem Davis-Gator turned out pretty good. DJ Reader turned out pretty good as well. So I hate the notion that people are saying, oh, it's Lou Anarumo's fault. Yeah, he's part of the blame, but he's not the big blame for how terrible the Bengals are when it comes to drafting defensive players. So you're saying fire him. Who the hell are you going to bring? Because if you bring anyone else, they can't fix that defense. The defense is what it is. It is what it is. It's terrible. And it's because of front office. Duke Tobin, Mike Brown, the Blackburns. It's you guys. You guys remain the Bengals. What they say, same shit, just a different day. Same shit, just a different season when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm still a Bengals fan. I always will be. But the Joe Burrow era is just, I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks. It's nearing to the point where it's becoming a failure. And I hate that because I was so excited when the Bengals drafted him. But you put so much emphasis on offense. I get it. Okay, that's great. You put emphasis on improving the line so you won't get that man killed. You did that. But you didn't try to better the defense. So stop blaming Lou Anarumo because it's the front office fault for not drafting good defensive players. So I don't know what else to say. It really is the truth. Yeah, that's all I gotta say. It's sad out here. It really is, because this football team is better than 1-4. We know that. 1-4 for real. And people are saying, well, we were close against the Commanders. Oh, we were close against the Patriots. Those are football teams you have to win. The schedule came out in May. You saw the first 3 games. Patriots, who the second team? Well, Chiefs, okay, 50-50. Commanders and Panthers. We would have thought this Bengals team would be 3-1 the first 4 games of the season. Oh, you lose to the Patriots. You only scored 10 points. You go to Kansas City, you had the game in check, but then your quarterback fumbled it. That shit happens, and then 4th and 16. And then you lose to Jaden Daniels, who's a stud for the Washington Commanders, and Jaden Daniels is a really good football player. And I think the Commanders might be in it till the end when it comes to potentially winning the division, maybe. But you allowed them to go into your house on Monday Night Football and a must-win for you guys, and you guys are 0-2. You allowed them to score 38 points. Unforgivable. You play the Carolina Panthers, you're 0-3. You have to win that game. You win that game 34-24. And then in this game, you're playing against the Baltimore Ravens, your rival. You have to win this game. It's the first divisional game of the season. And then your head coach blows it at the end. And people are saying the pick or the missed snap on the field goal. No, Stop deflecting. It's Zach. It's always been Zach. All right. I've talked so much. It's been like 15 minutes. Tommy, go ahead.
No, that's great. I'm same sentiment as you, where just gonna preface all of this venting with the fact that I am not slandering anybody as a person or the character. I'm
No.
not encouraging anybody to go egg their house or
No.
anything like that, and neither are you. But these are just like based on their professional work and what they show us.
Yep.
This is where I'm getting these opinions.
Yep.
The first one is the thing that I texted you yesterday, which is that we, as the Bengals organization, have the exact opposite problem that the Chiefs do as an organization, which is no matter how poorly they seem to play in games, no matter how poorly they play throughout a game, they always seem to find a way to end up with a win at the end of the day. And no matter how well that we seem to play, we find a way to lose. And there's not anything that I have as advice for how to fix that particular problem other than the coaching, which we'll talk about and you talked about, but that just needs to systemically be changed because we can't keep playing insanely good offensive games and then terrible defensive games, or it's just not a cohesive unit, which is on the coaching because there's the offense and there's the defense, and right now they feel like worlds apart in terms of quality and play calling and the ability to put up a lot of points versus allow them to put up a lot of points. But the part that I'm the most annoyed about at the moment is I'm too over and exhausted of the aw shucks post game press conference from Zach Taylor. I feel like every time I watch this dude talk about in a press conference, he says, oh, good job by Joe Burrow for checking out of that pass play, or like, got to be better next week. And I don't know how many times you and I have talked about this on this podcast over the years in the Zach Taylor era, which is, yeah, great. We agree with you. We do have to be better next week. But what are you going to do about it? Like, what are you actually going to do to make that happen? And he doesn't change anything. And then that's just another indictment of like, you can say these things all you want, but like, we don't believe you anymore because I don't think you're doing anything to change these things to get better for next week. And these things, how these games end up, and so far this year, happen because of poor decisions that Zach Taylor is making. I think I would respect it so much more if he just owned up to it, say, I screwed up. I made some bad decisions towards the end of this game. Own up to it. Let us know that you screwed up, but you're going to be better next week and you have a plan for how to be better next week. And then maybe we'll move on a little more. But don't keep acting like, well, these things just happen. What are you going to do? Because that doesn't happen at the same rate to other teams in this league. It just seems to be happening to us constantly. And I don't think that the Bengals as an organization have some like cosmic curse on us where these things are just going to keep happening to us. It's because of the way that we're coaching this team and running our organization and being a cheap organization, not fucking paying anybody, so then everybody leaves that has quality on defense, at least. Offense, we've actually been pretty good about paying people lately, but other than Jamar, but pin that for a second. But it's like, what are you going to do to, I want Zach Taylor to host a midweek press conference where he details an actual plan of action for how he is going to make sure it doesn't continue to happen. Because misuse of timeouts, terrible clock management, play calling is ludicrous in these crucial moments of the game. And there are times, yesterday was one of them, on the offense at least. I'm going to ignore the defense for a second here, but on the offense, where I was like, I feel like we're calling a pretty good game right now. This is one of the best defenses in the league, and we're hanging 38 points on them. I feel like Joe Burrow's in a rhythm. Zach Taylor can feel that rhythm and is calling the right plays for that. We had a tough time running the ball too much, but Chase Brown still had a pretty good game as far as how good the Ravens defense is against the rush for what he was able to do. Still about 4 yards per carry, which against that team is very solid. And then when we get to the the crucial moments of the game, he just ignores it. Like,
It's so annoying.
I I love Joe Burrow. He was having the game of his life. I understand wanting to give him the rock, but as you were just saying, if there's 3 minutes left in the game, you're winning, you're already in field goal range, they only have one timeout left. Why are we only throwing the ball? I think we threw the ball 5 or 6 times and ran the ball one time. And I
Yeah.
know that they
Yeah.
were completions. And I it's not luck, Joe Burrow's good, but like
Mhm.
those are completions that keep the clock running, and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins did a good job staying in bounds. But like, we really should be running the ball on first and second down, and then let Joe Burrow pass on third down because he is your best bet to get that first down, passing the ball. I'm fine with that. But on first and second down, make them use their dang timeouts, kill some of the clock, and then kick the field goal. It's not the same stakes because it's just a week 5 matchup, but it it's the same decision making that Pete Carroll made, which is the reason that the Seahawks lost the Super Bowl. And like, Russell Wilson gets all this flack. Russell Wilson's kind of a weird guy, so we're going to put that aside for a sec. But like, as a football player, he was really good that year, and he was really good in Seattle. And I feel like he gets so much flack for throwing that interception when he should not have been in that position in the first place.
Mhm.
And I feel like the same thing I'm applying to this game, which is Joe Burrow's getting a little bit of flack. You were talking about people saying that, and it wasn't a great throw. He probably should have known not to throw it based on where the corner's position was. But regardless, what I'm saying is he should not have been in that situation where that was even something for him to debate. We should have run the ball. I would have even, if you're talking about like playing to win versus playing to lose, this is a coaching decision that people are, iffy on anyways. But I wouldn't have even been that upset if we ran the ball all 3 times, kicked a field goal, and then we're at the 2-minute warning and they have 2 minutes, no timeouts, and they have to get a touchdown to win.
Well,
They probably would have gotten it, let's be completely honest, based on how the defense was playing. But like, if all you need is one stop, it is a lot more difficult when you have to go out of bounds all the time. You have to get in the end zone or you lose. It's just like it completely changes the dynamic of the game when you don't just have to go get a field goal. And so anyway, that is just like frustrating because I feel like we threw the ball so often towards the end of the game when we were trying to chew clock, and it ended up working out in his favor until it didn't. And it was only a matter of time until it didn't work out in our favor, in my opinion, in that scenario. And I just feel like those are the things that week after week I watch Zach Taylor make just bonkers opinions and decisions with clock management, with play calling down the stretch. And even though he may be play calling well throughout the game, it's in those crucial moments that I don't like. Do you believe in Joe Burrow or not? So in the fourth quarter, in these scenarios where I'm talking about, regardless of having Joe Burrow, I don't care who I have, I'm running the ball at least twice. First and second down, I'm running the ball. I'm killing the clock, making them use their timeouts. That's just what I'm doing. That's my old head philosophy. But fine, Zach Taylor, you're going to let him throw the ball. Great. We threw a pick. We make it to overtime. We get the fumble. We have a chance to go down the field. And then you decide you don't trust him anymore. And then you run all the time. So it's like, do you trust him or not? You trusted him 15 minutes ago. And now you don't trust him anymore. So now we're just running. And then the part that also, this is just like coaching negligence, which has to be punished at some point. If you're going to just run the ball to get into field goal range, kick on third down, because you can fumble the snap. We were already in field goal range. If you know that you're not going to go for the end zone, kick on third down so you can lay down on it and call a timeout and try again. Instead, we ice our kicker. We run 3 ridiculous run plays just to get Evan on the right hash that he wanted. which is fine. I don't mind letting Evan go for a field goal to win this game. But
The 53.
kick on third down. Don't waste your time out to ice your own kicker. There's like all these things that I'm just like, this is like coaching atrocity at like the highest level. And he can't keep getting away with it. And it's so infuriating to watch. And like, so it's just all of those things compiling that I'm just like, I cannot watch this man make decisions on television anymore. It is baffling. And so it feels like a lot of what I've heard from Zach Taylor is just like, oh, I'm tired of being in the era where we should have won games, because yes, we should have won those games, but we need to have an actual plan to figure out why these things are happening. We need to have some introspection from Zach Taylor and some accountability, because we should have won these games. And a lot of your decision making are the reasons that we're not winning these games. And so I just don't know how a lot of these things are anybody's fault besides coaching. We'll talk about this when we get to defense, but while we're here, the thing I was talking about with Joe Burrow is, yes, I think he made it wasn't a great throw when he threw the pick. It's an unfortunate scenario. We could have kicked regardless, but like, you should be able to have a game where you throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns and make one single mistake in an otherwise flawless game and not lose because of it. Like, that should not be the scenario you're placed in, because then you have to be completely perfect at all times or else you lose football games. And that's just not a fair situation to put him in. I feel like I need to like send my therapy bills and doctor's visits to this organization. Because my blood pressure was crazy. I was like, I was so annoyed. But I feel like I haven't been this frustrated with them since the year before Marvin left. And because I just felt like that year, it felt like we were phoning in everything, and it didn't feel like we cared about succeeding and finding ways to fix the problems that we have. Because every team has problems. There are years where you're going to be not as good, not as talented, whatever, but you still have to find coaches and find players who are going to find ways to be better next week and to address the problems that they have for the problems that you're able to address. If you have no good receivers on your team, you can't just magically create one in the middle of the year. So like, there are things like that you can't always solve. The last thing I'll say is, for when I was so annoyed at this game, and Liv asked me what it would take for us to fire Zach Taylor. And it brings up a good question, because I want to know if you agree with this, because this is what I was responded with. I don't know what it would take. What I do know is that we're not going to do it in the middle of the year. I don't know if the Bengals have ever done it in the middle of the year, so we're not going to. So it's going to be the entire rest of this year, at least. Like you said, it's probably even more than that, but at the very least, it won't be till the offseason. We traditionally will let a coach be mediocre or just outright not good for at least 2 full seasons before we make any of these decisions. So since last year we ended up above 500, even with Burrow's injury, they're probably not, that one. This would basically be year 1 in a row for being a bad year. And so he'd probably have to do it for a full year next year. And the problem is probably just that the ownership and the leaders of the organization don't think that Zach Taylor is the problem and why we're losing games. I completely disagree. There's probably a reason I do not work in an NFL front office, but I feel like it's as clear as day that it's a Zach Taylor problem. And I feel like the only reason we fired Marvin Lewis is because people literally stopped showing up to the games to watch the team play. And so they were like, okay, the bottom line, our pockets are the only thing that's going to get this organization to make changes that I believe are necessary. And with Joe Burrow, I just don't know if we're going to, we're not going to stop showing up as a fan base with Joe Burrow, I don't think, especially when he's playing like this. And so I don't know how else, as consumers or as fans, that we can kind of force this. But I think something's got to happen. And it makes me so sad, because just like you, I'm a fan. I'll always be a fan. When I was I know you mentioned it in the Instant Reaction podcast that I was talking about. I don't know if I have the heart to watch us play the Giants. It's not because I'm not a fan anymore. It's just like my blood boils every week when I watch this team, and it's just like so hard. I know I'll watch it, but it's just like I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can stomach losing to Daniel Jones in prime time. So I just hope that we can find some way to get that going. And I feel like I'm having a hard time with this because, very generally speaking, I love this team. I've always supported them, and the we've discussed this in past podcasts, but the product we're putting on the field right now is just so frustrating to watch. And if we let 300 yards and 30 points from Danny Dimes go up, it's just going to be hard to watch. And before anybody accuses me of being a bandwagon fan, I certainly am not that. I am going to watch it. I'm just going to be depressed the whole time probably. And I'm going to watch, unfortunately.
Yeah, I knew what you were saying when you sent me that text.
Like I'm at the point where I'm like I'm annoyed that I have to watch them, but I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah.
So it's like
I feel like it was any other. If we didn't have like Joe, Jamar, T.
Totally. I might not.
Yeah, it's like, but those three players are like so unique when it comes to all three of them have different personalities. So it's like I have to watch. They're so good on offense. They're the best offense in the league.
I know.
And back to your Zach Taylor thing. Yeah. Back to your Zach Taylor thing about what it's going to take to the Bengals to fire him. Marvin Lewis was here for 16 years, and he was 0-7 in the playoffs.
No, you're right. It's going to take a lot.
Yeah.
More than we think is.
Yeah. I think the only way the Bengals fire Zach Taylor if I don't know. I really don't know because, like you said, they don't think he's the problem. But I know. But I know they're hearing the noise from the fans. And eventually, Bengals fans are going to be like, listen, as much as we love Joe and Jamar, we're not going to settle for a coach that can't coach this nucleus of a football team. With the way this team is talented. Talking about offense. Defense is a lost cause. Talking about offense. It's frustrating. And I was trying to pull up this. Zach Taylor was talking to the media today, and he said, we're 5 games into the season. I know what all the noise is. We need to be the best version of ourselves. I got to put us in a better position. I haven't done a good job. Haven't done a good enough job of that. It hasn't been good enough in all areas.
That is literally every single Zach Taylor press conference. He's like, got to be better, and then doesn't say shit about how he's going to actually do that. Every single time.
Seriously, like
he has a template, I swear.
Right. After the game yesterday, Joe said that we're not a championship level caliber team. I was like, I love you, Joe. But in my head, I was like, no shit. But I hear what he's saying. And then Jamar was saying, we can't be putting up 30 plus points and losing. But also, he was like, I ran a shitty route. Those are 2 players taking accountability. Zach Taylor sat in the podium and he was like, well, yeah, good on Joe for checking out that play. And he was pretty much saving his ass because he fucked up in the overtime session and on those 3 running plays. While your 2 best players, while your 2 best players were taking accountability, you're the head coach. You're the one you should take an accountability. So for that quote, for him to say that today, blah 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 blah, you stop because you heard the noise, and that's why people are frustrated because you didn't take accountability last night, but today, I gotta be better. Yeah, same shit. We've heard this before with you, Zach. Also, he said, go ahead.
No, the last thing was just that, like, that exact scenario is why Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are good leaders for this team, because they're like, okay, this thing that I did, they're saying caused us to lose the game, whatever. They're taking accountability. I made a mistake there, even though they were far and away not the reason we lost this game.
No.
And I can also tell you with guaranteed certainty that Joe Burrow not being vocal enough is not the reason our defense sucks ass. So
no.
Let's not blame his lack of vocal on
I know he was when he said during the week last week, he's like, I have to be a not a better leader, but I gotta be more vocal. It's like, Joe, listen, you can't play defense, man. You're not out there. And when you say you have to play perfect, that was pretty much him telling the defense, yeah, the defense was shitty. About saying that.
Right.
And did the defense respond? In the first half, they're relatively decent, and in the second half, they returned to their old ways. And here's what Zach said before we go to offensive thoughts. He's like, he won't specify different areas of either offense or defense that has to be better. Here's what he said.
No, why would he?
Well,
Why would he do that?
Why would he, right? Here's what he said. We have to be better on the whole.
I fucking hate him so much. Ugh.
And I like how Cincinnati media, usually they're pansies when it comes to asking coaches questions, but they were actually hitting them hard today. But Zach Taylor is just like, no, we just got to be better. I still believe in our team. We're only 1-4. Season's not over. We got 12 games left. Yeah, 2.5 games out of the division. I'm not even thinking about the wild card. Like, are you going to win a football game?
Also, if we need to be better as a whole, please tell me what the offense should have done differently yesterday.
Maybe if Zach Moss or Chase Brown would have ran directly with the offensive lineman, maybe we would have got a couple of yards to give Evan McPherson a little bit more of an easier field goal attempt. This guy, he has some nerve. Like we said, we don't hate the guy as a person. We just don't like him as a play caller and a head coach. And one last thing. When Zach Taylor talks about culture, and he talked about how he wanted to bring players from other teams that have won before, yeah. Now, those players that are here in this organization, when the team starts to lose, they don't know what to do because they're not used to losing. Like Joe Burrow won a national championship in LSU. Jamar Chase won it with LSU too. I believe T. Higgins won a national title with Clemson with Trevor Lawrence. I believe he did. Yeah, I think he did. And then you bring in Von Bell, winner. It's like these players, they're used to winning. So when it comes to them losing, it's like, okay, Zach, you bring these players, but now they're like, oh, shoot. They're like deer in the headlights. Okay, how can we overcome this adversity? It's on you, man. You talk about culture and stuff and that. I'm done with that. Been done with that. Okay, that was the longest vent session ever. That's pretty much longer than my therapy sessions.
Yeah.
We did it, Tommy. We really did it. Let's go to the offense. We can be positive on this podcast. The offense was great on Sunday. 442 total yards, 38 points. You still lose the fucking game thanks to defense. Slow start in the first, but early parts of the second quarter as well. But until Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase connected in the first explosive touchdown of the game, that was amazing. I was like, okay, here we go. 6.8 yards per play. 3 for 3 in the red zone. I've been talking about the red zone. The Bengals have been perfect over the last 2 weeks. 8.8 yards per play on the air. 8 for 14 on third downs. Running game, it was fine the first half. Ravens made adjustments, but like you said, Chase Brown still got 46 yards. He did call a touchdown pass from Joe Burrow. Speaking of Joe, 30 for 39, 392, 5 touchdowns, 1 pick. If his team wasn't 1-4, he will be in the top of the boards when it comes to league MVP right now. First in touchdowns, 12. He has a passer rating of 113.6, number 1. Completion percentage, 72.2, number 2. Passing yards, 1,370, that's 3. 40-plus yards passes, he has 5 of those. That's tied for first in the NFL. Jamar Chase, 10 catches, 193, 2 touchdowns, 12 targets. Jamar Chase, in his last 3 games, 16 catches, 396, and 4 touchdowns. T. Higgins, 9 catches, 83 yards, 2 touchdowns on 14 targets. In the last 3 games, the offense has scored 105 points, and the Bengals are 1-2. If your offense scores 100-plus points in 3 games, you better have a winning record. But you don't, is because your defense is so bad. It's so bad. Now, the offensive line, we talked about how great it was over the first 4 games. This was probably their bad game of the season. Joe Burrow was sacked 3 times. One thing that scared me in this game is when Amarius Mims and the cart came out and you saw the replay of the Ravens player stepping on his ankle. At first, I was like, this guy torn his Achilles. I was like, when things couldn't get worse for the Cincinnati Bengals, your first round draft pick of this year's draft gets hurt and you see the damn card, I'm like, oh my God, what have we done to you, sports gods? Seriously. But when Mims came back later in the fourth quarter, I'm like, oh, that's good because with all due respect, I ain't trying to see Cody Ford because that man is a distraction because he be cheating on his girl on fucking TikTok and shit. I don't want him to be on there in that offensive line. The fuck? And then you heard Jackson Kirkland's name, the backup. He torn his bicep, so he's out for the season. The Bengals today just picked up a guard from the Atlanta Falcons to the practice squad. I'm like, ooh, yeah, that's why. Ooh, great pick right there. But this offense is just, we're really ruining this. This could be probably the best Bengals offense in franchise history if they continue this trend. But I just feel like them scoring 30 plus points is not sustainable. It's not. Eventually, they're going to have a game where they're going to struggle, and then they're going to get their asses kicked because the defense can't stop a lick. That's my fear. That's my fear. That's all I got. What do you got for the offense?
That's my fear too. I mean, you just said it, but like top in the league in yards, completion percentage, touchdown passes, picks, touchdown interception ratio, QBR, passer rating. And one, this is a great example of why people should stop saying that wins are a quarterback stat because they're not. And these are MVP numbers. I think even if we were 2-3 instead of 1-4, he'd be the front runner for MVP, maybe with Josh Allen. Josh Allen is having a similarly very, very good start to the year with even after losing Diggs. But I think it would be, 1A, 1B for MVP race right now. And with, we've played different defenses, things get harder throughout the year, blah, blah, blah. But if you took his per game stats through the first 5 weeks and projected it to 17 games, he would have 4,658 yards, 41 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and did a little digging of every season ever where a quarterback has thrown 41 touchdowns in a season, which is what he's projected to through 5 weeks. Almost every single one, I think there were 20-ish, and I think only 3 of them did not win MVP that year. The only ones that didn't were because Dan Marino in the 80s lost to Lawrence Taylor because he was going crazy, and then Drew Brees lost to Adrian Peterson when he ran for 2,000 yards and had 6 yards per carry. So, and the only other times when someone didn't win was because somebody else on the exact same list won instead. Like in 2011, I think 3 quarterbacks did it. Aaron Rodgers happened to win, but Drew Brees and Tom Brady also did it. So they just lost to the other guy that did it. And it's like, it's crazy that we could potentially have an MVP level stat season that pretty much every single person that's ever done those stats won the MVP and just not do it because our record's not good enough. And just to do some splits on Joe Burrow, he's throwing 75.5% completion percentage with 8 touchdowns and 1 interception in home games this year, and yet we are 0-3 in those 3 games. Yet to win a home game. In our 4 losses, he has 72.5% completion percentage, 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. So those are not losing numbers. Like you cannot, if anybody comes to you and tells you that Joe Burrow is the problem, they do not know ball, and you should stop talking to them immediately. And funny enough, his splits in the fourth quarter are actually his worst split. But even so, it's still like 67% completions, 4 touchdowns, and 1 pick. So it's like, even at his, worst in the fourth quarter, if anyone tried to pull that, it's not bad. And there's not much else to say about that. And just like, other than Joe Burrow is balling out, you should be allowed to have 1 mistake and not have your team lose games. And it's just a great example and anecdote for why quarterback wins are not a quarterback stat. If we talk about rushing, less so about this game itself, but more the season as a whole. Chase Brown, still on the season, is averaging 5.6 yards per carry. Zach Moss is averaging 3.7 yards per carry. All love to Zach Moss. I don't want to stop using him. I think he's really good. But right now, we have basically a 60-40 split, with Zach Moss getting the 60%, Chase Brown getting the 40%. And I think we need to flip that. Chase Brown has 19 more yards this season than Zach Moss, despite having 16 less carries than him. And any split you look at, quarters, home, away, weather, whatever you want, Chase Brown is outperforming Zach Moss, and I think we need to reward that. Let him be the lead guy, and use Zach Moss for when he needs breaks. I'm still fine with a 60-40 split the other direction, but we need to be using Chase Brown much more than, because no matter who we're going against and what we have in the game plan for the day on the offensive side, Chase Brown is doing well enough to be a lead back in the NFL on this team. As far as receiving goes, Jamar's number 2 in the league right now in yards, tied for first in touchdowns. We need to pay this man the money that he deserves before we just let him walk away or try to do some franchise tag nonsense. If we have Joe and Jamar together, we can work with some scrappier guys in the 2 to 4 slots at wide receiver for a little bit cheaper if you want to save some money there, because they're so good together. But Jamar's so explosive, some random screen route that we can do with a little bit of blocking. That was good blocking from the receivers and tight ends. And you get some super long touchdown off a screen route. I mean, 12 targets, 10 catches, 193 yards, 2 scores, and so he's just, I mean, he's great. We don't need to, there's no debate on that really, but like, I'm glad T's back. He looks to be back to his normal form. Even though he's played 2 less games than everybody else this season, he's number 2 on our team in total yards receiving. He had an awesome game. He was making good contesting catches, jump ball catches, which I love to see. Our offensive line, I think for the most part, did a really good job blocking. The Ravens defense is really solid, and they do a very good job of getting pressure on people. I felt like they stood up the best that they could, allowing 3 sacks, not ideal, but the damage could have been much, much worse. So I feel like for the most part, Joe stayed really cool and was able to have an incredible game because he trusts this offensive line for probably the first time in his career. He trusts an offensive line. And so far this season, 5 games, we've scored the 4th most points in the entire NFL, and yet we're 1-4. We've scored 34 more total points than the next highest 1-4 team, which is the Jags. And I love this offense so much. It's the reason I'm going to keep watching this team for this year, but it's getting really difficult for my emotional levels to keep watching these games. So I'm going to need us to figure something out. But the offense is not the problem. I could talk and find stats all day long to prove why they're doing an insanely good job.
Well said, my friend. Also, I'm just really shaking my head because I'm just like all these amazing numbers and stats, and we only have 1 win. Just 1 win. I don't get it, and it's because of the defense. Speaking of defense, let's talk about the defense. I thought the first half, I think they would actually play really good. Only allowed 14 points. They pretty much contained Derrick Henry because coming into this game, we all thought Derrick Henry was going to rush for like 400 yards, but the Ravens decided. I said before the game in the preview that I think they're going to pass the ball more, and they did. They passed the ball 42 times. But Lamar Jackson diced up the Bengals secondary, which is not really hard to do. But Sam Hubbard had the game of his life in the first half. He's the one that tackled Derrick Henry in the end zone for the safety. If you would have told me Sam Hubbard got a safety on Henry, I would have been like, oh, that's definitely not in the cards. But then Lamar Jackson doing some Houdini shit in the 4th quarter. I think it was the 2nd touchdown grab by Isaiah Likely, the tight end. Botch snap. Jackson picks it up, rolling to the right. Sam Hubbard chasing him, and Lamar Jackson's what? How much does Lamar Jackson weigh? Like,
it can't be more than like 200, maybe 210.
Yeah, he said he's gotten leaner. He looks like he's gotten leaner, like 205, right? Sam Hubbard probably has like 100-pound, weight advantage. Lamar Jackson stiff-armed the shit out of him. And before he was going to throw the ball out of bounds, he throws a dot to Isaiah Likely in the back of the end zone for the touchdown. that was one hell of a play. But also in that same play, I was also embarrassed with Sam Hubbard because he just went down, took his helmet, and he's like, I can't believe that. Yeah, you got stiff arm by Lamar Jackson. He was like 205, and you're like 270 or something. I don't know. Pretty embarrassing to say the least. Lamar Jackson was 26 for 42, 348, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks. I think he was only sacked one time, but I think that was more of a covered sack. He had 12 carries for 55 yards rushing. Derrick Henry, 15 carries, 92 yards, a touchdown. But before that long play, after the Bengals fucked it up in their first overtime possession of the offense possession in the overtime, they contained Henry. Henry didn't do much just because the Ravens were going up tempo with just throwing the ball. So obviously that wasn't going to work with the factor when it comes to Derrick Henry's style. But even though Henry does get better as the game goes along, so Bengals failed in overtime possession, and then Henry goes off of 51 yards, and I'm like, all right, yep, 92 yards, but I think the Bengals did a good job of containing him. So I'll give the defense that. But still, in this game, the players in position to make a play. I've been saying that ever since the first preseason game against Tampa Bay. They just whiff. They just whiff. As always, I have no idea why this team can't tackle. I don't know why this team cannot, when they're in position to make a tackle, they just completely whiff, or they're second guessing, like, oh, I can't. It's like, what are we doing? Come on now. I don't know. Are they teaching them how to tackle? Is it bad coaching? I don't know. It's ridiculous. Like, I'm okay with them allowing Zay Flowers to go off. He has 7 catches, 111 yards. But for Kohler, the tight end, had 3 catches of 64 yards and a touchdown. And the fact that Rashad Bateman got 4 catches of 58 yards, Rashad Bateman hasn't done shit all year. The fact that he caught a touchdown pass and it was actually involved in the offense for the Ravens in this game, that almost made me throw up. Isaiah Likely is a good tight end. He had only 3 catches, but he had 2 touchdowns, so he made up for it. It's frustrating. It really is. Myles Murphy's debut, first game back since the knee injury he had during training camp. I thought he looked good in the first quarter. He didn't miss he was in position to potentially stop Justice Hill in the Ravens' first offensive drive of the game in 4th down when they went for it. But Myles Murphy hesitated a little bit. I think the knee is still trying to get back into game speed. But I think he was okay. He wasn't like really, really good, but he made an impact. And also, he was the 10th ranked defensive player on the team on Sunday. 10th best grade. BJ Hill, welcome back. He was the 2nd rated defensive player on the team. Dax Hill. Dax Hill. He's been the most consistent defensive player. Other than Trey Hendrickson, I think Dax Hill is number 2. Unfortunately, he left the game with a knee injury, and then we found out today that he tore his ACL. That's a bummer because I think Dax Hill was really coming into fruition. I was really excited to see what Dax was going to do throughout the rest of the regular season, and then for this to happen, it's a bummer. So I hope that he'll be able to recover well because I think him making the transition into a cornerback has worked really well for him. That's a bummer. It really is. And now we get to see more probably of DJ Turner, and then my guy that I really like the Bengals drafted, Josh Newton, but he hasn't really seen the field as much. But Dax Hill, nothing but best wishes in your recovery from that ACL injury. That's so sad. It really is. But Jordan Battle and Geno Stone, they had some bad games. Geno Stone was the worst Bengals defensive player on Sunday. He had the worst grade on the team of 27.8. Jordan Battle was the 2nd worst at 29.0. I know that I've been saying that we need to play Jordan Battle more, but they did. When Von Bell was getting torched, they say, okay, let's put Jordan Battle in. And then he get torched. They're like, all right, put back Von Bell. I think at this point, it's like, okay, no one's good in the safety position. No one's good. Geno Stone, I think that's the reason why the Ravens just were like, okay, we can let you go. Like, you had some interceptions, cool. But we don't think you're like the franchise piece in safety because you have Kyle Hamilton, who's an absolute stud. So we really let Jesse Bates go, and now we're stuck with like Geno Stone and Von Bell and Jordan Battle. No disrespect to them, but Jesse Bates is an all-pro in Atlanta. I I don't know. I already talked about my take on Lou Anarumo, but there's really no fixing on this defense. There really isn't. I didn't really hear Trey Hendrickson's name at all on Sunday. So I guess the Ravens, game plan for like double teaming him worked. I think McKinley Jackson played a little bit, I believe. I think he did. I don't know if there's like a Pro Football Focus grade on him, if I can pull that up. Yeah, he played a little bit, which that's cool and all, but overall, there's really nothing to say about the defense. Yeah, Cantilla Britt, nice hit. Yeah, you played okay, but you were mentioning when what was it? He did the seatbelt thing, and you're like, bro, quit. You haven't strapped anyone at all this season.
Like, come on, dude.
Yeah, that's all I got for the defense. They're over 500 yards allowed total at this point.
Yeah.
It doesn't really surprise me. So, if you got anything to add, I'm really it's exhausting talking about this defensive unit.
It is. And for a team who we knew we had a terrible rush defense, but the pass defense was actually not too bad, completely
Yeah.
did not live up to that. Their third string tight end, Charlie Kolar, that you mentioned, 3 catches for 64 yards and a score. Rashad Bateman, who is not a scrub by
No.
any means, but 4 catches for 58 yards and a touchdown is a season high for him in catches and yards. It's only his second touchdown of the year. Whoever the fuck Tylan Wallace is had 2 catches for 31 yards. His only 2 catches of the entire season. Like, Lamar completed a pass to 9 different people, and they had at least a rushing attempt from 5 different people. So they just, on offense, they know how to, do whatever they need to do to get yards and to get points, and we just could not find an answer for it the entire day. You're right. They did play pretty well in the first half, but then the Ravens adjusted a lot, and it really threw us for a loop, and we couldn't stop anything from there on out. I mean, Sam Hubbard did play well in the first half, like you said. A sack, he had 2 tackles for loss, had a safety. Didn't know if I'd say Sam Hubbard getting a sack super often either, so it's nice to get those. But yeah, getting stiff armed by Lamar is just like, he's like, he's agile and stuff like that. If you get juked out by Lamar, I don't blame you. Like, how the hell are you supposed to stop that? But getting stiff armed, come on, like, what are we doing? Okay, here is a very depressing stat for you. And this number may shock you, it might not. You tell me. I know you can't just do this because Trey Hendrickson is a very valued member of this defense. He's the defensive MVP. How he plays is how the rest of the defense plays. And he has 3 sacks this year. If you take away his 3 sacks, we only have 3 sacks for the entire rest of the team. There are 38 individual players in the NFL who have more than 3 sacks, which means if you remove Trey Hendrickson, which again, you can't just like remove it for the sake of stats, but like the entire rest of the defensive line, linebackers, corners, whatever, have the same amount of sacks through 5 games as 38 individual roster players for other teams. Like, it's crazy. And like you said, our safeties are not good enough to be holding on for this long. Our corners are not good enough to be holding on for this long. This defense only works when you create a lot of and consistent pressure, and we just cannot do it. And there's just some other things that, like, last week I said that it feels like the Super Bowl winning teams are the teams that have at least 2 of the 3 of an elite quarterback, an elite head coach, and an elite defense. Right now, we have 1 of the 3 with the quarterback. I don't see us firing Zach Taylor, because it's just not who we are. Even if we do fire Zach Taylor, I don't know who will want to come coach here. I think there is some allure because of Burrow and Chase, but especially looking at the defense, it's not a slam dunk that we would get someone that really wants to take on the pet project we have back there. And this is related to the defense because I think that I truly believe the defense is a very large part of the problem right now. There's coaching, but like let's live in a world for a second where we get rid of Zach Taylor and we get rid of Lou Anarumo. Or maybe we don't get rid of Lou, but we get rid of Zach Taylor for sure. I think that the recipe for success with the team that we have right now and the personnel is to hit free agency really hard as possible on defense. I know we're not going to do that. We never hit free agency very hard. We always go for the cheap guys and hope that they end up being Hall of Famers somehow. But if you ignore that for a second, I think where I think you hit on this a little bit for when you made the joke about getting Marvin Lewis back is I do think even though we have a very, very good offense and good quarterback and receiver combo, I think we need to go with a defensive minded head coach and then get a really creative, smart offensive coordinator to call the offensive plays. I think that recipe is what's winning in the NFL right now. If you think about the Lions, they have Dan Campbell, very defensive minded, like ground and pound kind of head coach. And then they have Ben Johnson calling these plays, really smart, creative. The Washington Commanders are doing the same thing. Whatever you think about Cliff Kingsbury as a head coach, he's a good offensive coordinator, and Dan Quinn knows what he's doing. The Houston Texans, D'Amico Ryans came in, defensive-minded head coach. They bring in, what's his name, Bobby Slowick or Clint Kubiak or whoever's their offensive coordinator. Clint Kubiak's Saints, I think. And the Saints are the same thing. You have Dennis Allen. You have Clint Kubiak. These are just like off the top of my head, but like that's the recipe right now. And I think that we have the team structure to fit well with that recipe. And so that would be
I like that.
I don't know who's going to be available. I don't even think we're going to fire Zach Taylor because it just doesn't seem to be what we do. But let's live in a fantasy world where we do. Our thoughts for head coach, for who might be available based on who's having a really good season, might want a head coaching job. I wouldn't be that upset if we tried to give Mike Vrabel a second chance.
I like that.
The Lions defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, is doing good stuff. Brian Flores, I think he probably deserves another chance at head coach. I think he did not get a fair shot the first time. And he's a crazy good defensive coordinator with the Vikings. He draws up a lot of pressure. He knows how to get the most out of his guys. And he's a defensive-minded head coach. And then we could try to get someone as an offensive coordinator who might be available. I don't know who all is going to like switch teams to stay as an offensive coordinator. So I don't know. I don't think we'll be able to poach someone like Ben Johnson. I think he's going to go to a head coaching position. But a couple guys that could be good offensive coordinators if they were to get fired, Brian Daboll, Doug Peterson, they're supposed to be good, offensive minds. They helped the guys that they were coaching as offensive coordinators for progress. Doug Peterson did a really good job with like Carson Wentz, for example. Brian Daboll with early Josh Allen. I'm just saying, if we have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, we get some good defensive pieces in free agency, and we have B Flow running the team with like Brian Daboll coaching the offense, like I can get behind that. And I don't think we're lucky enough for any of that to happen. We're probably going to end up trying to get some 30-year-old phenom again, like with Zach Taylor, if we even fire him. But I just feel like that would be a really good team. I feel like that's the best recipe for getting back into the competitive borderline elite team and defense the quickest way before it's 4 years down the road when we actually get this thing back on the tracks. And there are consequences. Jesse Bates being a perfect example, like you said. There are consequences to being a cheap organization and just trying to get these discount players and hoping they play like top-level talent. Every once in a while, you find a guy that does this and you get lucky. You get him on a cheaper deal and he plays out of his mind. But that's just not the norm. And that's not – we can't just keep doing that. No. And the last thing I'll say is just that, like, I think that he played pretty well for the most part, but there were 3 or 4 at least that I can think of off the top of my head where Cam Taylor Britt was the closest defender and he wasn't even on the screen. Like off the television screen level of defense. So he's 5 to 7 yards away of who he's supposed to be guarding. And I think 80 to 90% of any given game, he's a very, very good, solid corner. But that 10 to 20% is just really not good. And I think 10 to 20% is much too often for me to consider him a true number one quarter that I can be confident in. I think that's all I got for defense.
Yeah.
Let me know your thoughts on any of that. But I just, we could probably talk all day long about how terrible they've been playing, but there's just, we got to fix something.
Yeah, I love what you said about the coaches, and we got to hire a defensive minded coach and then bring in a smart offensive mind type of coach. But Bengals aren't smart enough to even do that. They're that dumb.
You're right.
I'm sorry.
Don't get me wrong. I don't think we're going to do any of those things.
No, it's such a great idea. Like, you can honestly work for the front office right now. And then you pitch this idea to them. They're like, oh, wow, we never really thought about that. Yeah, okay, because you guys don't want to think. You're just okay with just being here, just getting average, and not like actually looking at the dynamics of the players you have. There'll never be a Joe Burrow. There'll never be a Jamar Chase. There'll never be a T. Higgins. Stop ruining this.
I know.
Stop. Yeah. They don't know that. It's like, oh my gosh. They really trust Zach Taylor. They really do. It's more of Joe. It's like, we trust Joe, but we're gonna keep Zach because him and Joe have a great relationship. I know behind the scenes Joe's probably at home saying, this motherfucker, but Joe is such a nice dude, and he takes the high road and say, I'm gonna say the right things. He likes Zach, but I feel like sometimes he's probably like, bro, help me out, my guy.
Real.
Oh,
completely.
Man. All right, well, since you said that you won't watch the Giants, you're going to watch the Giants game on Sunday night. Bengals and Giants, Sunday Night Football. Listen, people said it's going to be easy win. No, I think the Giants are actually playing good football. They're 2-2. They won on the road against the Seahawks last week. That's an impressive road win, especially in that environment. Say all you want about Daniel Jones. He's actually having a good season. He's, 1,138 passing yards, 6 touchdowns to only 3 picks. He has a 64.0 QBR. He can run the ball too, 108 yards. He's not been bad this year. So I think this is the perfect game for him to be like, man, I can showcase the world that I am Daniel Jones. I am Danny Dimes against a porous Bengals defense. Perfect opportunity for him to do that on Sunday Night Football. Ideal. Devin Singletary, 221 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. Tyrone Tracy Jr., the rookie back out of Purdue, who I really like from the draft. That's a good draft pick by the Giants. He has 158 rushing yards. Malik Neighbors, he didn't play last week because of a concussion, but the stud receiver out of LSU, 35 catches, 386, 3 touchdowns on 32 targets. So you pretty much assume that probably CTB is going to have the assignment on him. Can't wait for that. But Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson are having good seasons for the Giants. So their offense is actually not bad. This is not going to be an easy football game. It's not. And I know I'm trying to be optimistic and say the Bengals can win this football game, but the Giants' defensive line is actually really not bad. They're actually good at getting to the quarterback. So this is going to be a tough assignment, but I believe in the Bengals offense. They have to probably score 30 points again. If we're going to do this every week now.
I think so.
Yeah. I think the key in this game is Daniel Jones, yes, he's having a good year, but he'll give you gifts. If the Bengals can turn the football over from him, then I think they can capitalize, and that's pretty much the only shot to win the game because they're not going to stop the run. I think if Malik Neighbors do play, I think he might go off. I mean, they let Rashad Bateman go off for 4 catches, 58 yards. I know it's not a lot, but for him, that's a season high. And I'm afraid more of Wan'Dale Robinson because he's actually having a good year. 32 catches for 230 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. I like Darius Slayton, but Wan'Dale Robinson doing well. He actually won me a couple of bets through in the past few weeks. But anyways, yeah, I think turnovers, and then I think the running game needs to be better in this football game. I think Chase Brown needs to get, like you said, you like the 60-40. I think he needs to get majority of the carries. I know, continue to put in Zach Moss, but every time Chase Brown touches the ball, he's going off for like 6-7 yards, and it's so explosive. And I think you texted me this saying that's almost like a what was it, like a CMC type of. You weren't comparing him to Christian McCaffrey, but it's more of like him running the football with that type of explosion reminds you of Christian McCaffrey. Is that right?
I was saying that, like, pound for pound, offensive line quality to offensive line quality, I think that putting Chase Brown with, I think he would be one of the top backs in the entire NFL if we were using him to that capacity.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't think he would surpass Christian McCaffrey. I don't think he would beat out Saquon or Derrick Henry or anything like that. But I don't think he would be far off from those guys if we let him use him 80 to 85% of the snaps.
Right. Okay. He's explosive. And he caught a touchdown pass from Joe Burrow, like I said earlier. But yeah, I think 30 points is going to win this football game. It could be a shootout, but the Giants' defensive line does scare me a little bit. So, but then again, the Ravens' defensive line scared me a little bit before their game. So the Bengals still put up 38 points. So no, there'll be no more predictions. No, fuck that. I'm done with that. Nope. You were done with that last week. Nope, I'm not doing that. But if you want to win some money, I can give you guys like a parlay on the game. So I think Joe is gonna continue to stay hot. Throw 2 touchdowns, 275 plus yards, Chase Brown anytime touchdown, and then Bengals team points over 24.5. That's the Bengals parlay. I ain't gonna do no money line, +7 spread. They fucked me over last week, so we ain't gonna do that. So they can win this football game, but I swear, if they lose Sunday night, and I said that if they would have lost to the Panthers, that this podcast would have gotten ugly and instant reaction. But if you fall to 1-5 and you lose to the Giants, and the Giants are no scrub team, but you're the better team on paper. But if you lose to the Giants, you fall to 1-5 on the season. So help me God, I'm gonna go off. You thought that was something after the game against the Ravens yesterday? Wait till Sunday night. I'll wake the whole damn house up. I don't give a fuck because it's just this team is too talented to be where they're at right now. It's because of just bad defensive play and just bad coaching. Everyone needs to be held accountable. They fall to 1-5. Everyone's seat is going to be hot. And it won't be Zach Taylor, but I know Lou Anarumo, if he has a bad game on Sunday night, he's going to be in the hot seat. And honestly, I can see the Bengals probably canning him. And I will hate that. Sorry. I will hate that because if he's going to get canned, like I said earlier in the podcast, can Zach Taylor. But they won't do that. They won't do that. Because Zach, he got us to the Super Bowl. He got us back to the AFC title game a year later. Oh, yes, culture. Yeah, whatever. They should win this game, but I can see the Giants win this game as well. All I gotta say, it will be a close football game, and both our blood pressures are gonna be up high, so cannot wait. What do you got, my guy?
Yep. It might shock you to hear me say that I think we're going to win. But I'm with you. I think it'll be by 3 points maximum. It feels like a 31 to 28 kind of game because I know that we're not going to be able to stop them very well. I also know that they probably won't be able to stop our offense very much. So I do think that we're going to get a lot of points on the board, keep the hot streak going on offense, like you said. But I mean, you're right. Our offensive line has another good test this week. Was it Dexter Lawrence?
Yeah,
is that who it is?
Yeah, I think it's Dexter. Yeah.
With Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns, who they traded for.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good defense. It's a
Yeah.
good defensive
Yeah.
line. They're
Mhm.
going to get pressure on. They're going to have a tough task, but I think that they can hold up enough to let Burrow kind of carve through and do what we need to do. Let Chase Brown get back and get a lot more of those snaps and show us what he can really do, because I know that he's capable of it. I'm sure we'll make some really stupid decisions throughout the game, and I'm sure we'll do them in the most key moments because it's just what we do, and that's the character of our team at the moment, unfortunately. But I don't have a whole lot to this, honestly. I know it's going to be a closer game than I would like it to be. Just once. I would love us to win by 20, 30 points. It's not going to happen, but just like, gosh, what must that feeling be like? And I want us to just, keep it clean, try to limit the turnovers. I think if we limit the turnovers and keep trying to get Chase Brown going, let Joe Burrow, mess around, maybe we'll even run a play action play for once. Try to loosen up the defense. I think we'll score points, and then I think we can win if we do those things. But with the defense already performing at just a gutter pace and having even more injuries to go on top of that, it's Daniel Jones is going to look good. Malik Neighbors is going to look good if he plays and is looking healthy enough. And I don't know if I'm overreacting on this, but I think if we lose this game and we go to 1-5, I think that we should try to trade as many players as we can to get as many draft picks as possible. Because outside of, I'm not trading Joe, I'm not trading Jamar Chase. We can't trade T. Higgins because of the franchise tag. I would say don't trade Orlando Brown. Outside of that, I like a lot of these guys, but whoever has the most trade value, I don't think we're going to get first round picks for anybody on our team, but at this point, but if you can get a bunch of second round, third round picks and we can just stack them up, and I don't know the true value of second and third round picks, all things considered, but we got to do something. If we're 1-5 with this team, clearly we're not going to get anywhere with the people we have. We may as well try to get some draft capital out of it and just keep the main pieces that let our offense keep going around. I don't know. Do you think that's an overreaction?
No, I don't think so. I'll put on I already have a hat on. I'll put in my optimistic hat. Okay. So say if we do beat the Giants, you go to 2-4. And then you play, oh shoot, who do we play? Cleveland? Is it Cleveland?
Maybe. I actually don't remember. It
I'm
was after the
tripping.
Giants.
I'll pull it up. I pull it up. But when somebody told me, well, the schedule gets a little easier, I'm like, you think anything's easier with the 2024 Cincinnati Bengals? You got your damn mind.
We've already played. After the Giants, we will have played our 3 easiest games on the
Yeah, we play the Giants, and then we go to Cleveland. I know the Browns are a mess. They have given up. Deshaun Watson is shitty. However, this is the Cleveland Browns. They still have the same players on their roster, and the same players on that roster have beaten Joe Burrow and the Bengals, more than 5 times? That's not an easy game. I'm sorry. You're playing in Cleveland. For some reason, that's the Browns' Super Bowl. Always against the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah.
And I know the Bengals.
No, I agree.
I know the Bengals have a better offense and a better offensive line this time around against the Browns. For some fucking reason, they just know how to gameplay well against the Bengals. It just makes no sense. That's not an easy game. And then, say if you get by the Browns, okay, you're 3-4. Okay, there's little hope right here. You play the Eagles, who have honestly been really disappointing. I know they're 2-2, but Jalen Hurts went from here in the Super Bowl run in 2022. Then last year he was meh, and so far it's like his trajectory is a little down. It's kind of disappointing, but that's still a tough football game. It's winnable, but Saquon Barkley's having a good season for them so far in year 1. But you can still win that game. So say if you do beat the Eagles, oh yeah, here we go, 3-game winning streak. Here's our hot streak. We're 500, right? Then you play the Las Vegas Raiders, who benched Gardner Minshew. So I don't know who the fuck their quarterback is. Antonio Pierce said on Monday or today that we don't know who's going to be our quarterback. It could be Minshew. It could be some who's your second string? I don't know. Some
Aiden
dude.
O'Connell.
Yeah, I don't know if he's still in the football team. Some Robinson dude. I don't know. It's not Denard Robinson Shoelace from Michigan, but you should win that game. You're home, but you still stink at home. You're 0-3 at Paycor Stadium. Home field advantage. Fuck that noise. So you can win that game, right? Oh, 5-4. We're over 500 for the first time all season. And then you got at Baltimore, at San Diego, home game against the Steelers, at Dallas. Eesh. So before the next Ravens matchup, you got to win the next 4 games to even get to over 500. Is that possible? I believe in the offense, but on the defense and the coaching. So I don't know. It could happen. They could be 5-4 when they meet Baltimore again. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Probably won't. So that's my optimistic hat. You have any optimism?
Speaking of when we play the Cowboys later, the Zach Taylor versus Mike McCarthy misuse of clock management and timeouts bowl that we're about to play in is going to be miserable to watch. The game itself might be fine, but those two clowns are going to do weird shit back and forth all day long.
You think, hey, at least Dallas has 3 wins.
Yeah, even without Micah Parsons.
Yeah, still 3 wins, right? Even though the defense is still relatively, they're still good. Even without Parsons, still 3-2. Steelers blew that game last. There's no reason for the team to be 1-4. It still baffles me. It really does. Like I bet other teams in the NFL are looking at Bengals and like, how the fuck is Joe Burrow playing at MVP level and Jamar Chase is balling out like he did and T. Higgins is finally healthy, knock on wood, and doing his thing, and they're having the best offensive line ever in the Joe Burrow era, and they're still 1-4. Go ahead.
That is my only saving grace for us potentially actually getting some good head coaching opportunities to come here if we do end up firing Zach Taylor, is because there is a lot. Like, we're not a complete dumpster fire top to bottom on the roster. We have one of the better offenses in the entire NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, if you can just figure out to get the defense to play, 50% better than they're playing right now, we're probably 4-1.
Yeah. At least 4-1, 3-2. I don't. That's Put at the top before the season that the Commanders will be 4-1 and the Bengals be 1-4. Coaching.
But that's what
Jaden Daniels. Yeah, Jaden Daniels is great. It's coaching.
It is.
Yeah.
And whoever's saying that like our toughest stretch of games is a forward, just to be very clear, we've already played the 3 games against the 3 worst records in the NFL from last year. We already played the Patriots, we already played the Panthers, and we already played the Commanders. Those were number 2 and 3 and would have been 1 if they didn't trade for a pick for Bryce Young, because they got the Bears got their pick. But it was Panthers, Commanders, Patriots. So those are the worst 3 teams we're going to play this year.
I mean,
the Commanders look good.
Oh yeah,
I'm not.
But the Patriots are bad. I can't believe this football team lay an egg on opening day. Like I said, that's unforgivable. That really is. I've experienced a lot of demoralizing regular season losses as a Bengals fan. I've been a Bengals fan for almost 20 plus years, something like that. Like, this one probably is number 1. Like, for me, before this game on Sunday, number 1 for me, I don't know if you remember, this was 2006, and the Bengals were playing the Steelers, the last game of the season, and the Bengals had to win the game to have a shot at the playoffs. They had every scenario work in their favor, and they took the lead in the 4th quarter later, and then Steelers came back, they kicked the field goal to tie the game, and then the Bengals, Carson Palmer hit a big play to Chris Henry for like 50-plus yards, God rest his soul, to get them in field goal range. And Shane Graham, at the time, one of the most accurate field goal kickers in the league, missed, I believe it was like a 39-yard field goal. The ball went, and I was just like, you fucking kidding me. And it was Bill Cowher's last game coaching in the NFL, something like that. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was Bill Cowher's last game. And then an overtime came. Ben Roethlisberger finds Centennial Holmes in the slant, Holmes goes all the way to the end zone for the touchdown, and then the Steelers knocked the Bengals out of the playoffs. If the Bengals would have won that game, they would have been in the playoffs. That was the demoralizing for me, but I feel like yesterday was more like that was like the more demoralizing regular season loss as a fan. Yeah. The fact that I remember that is ridiculous. Trivia, man. This podcast is running long, but hey, we got a lot to talk.
True. Some of I'll be honest, these are kind of hard questions, so
Right.
I'll try to get some hints. But I more just wanted to, since we were talking about a lot of drafting stuff last week, and you were saying how we haven't drafted well the last few weeks, or sorry, last few years.
Right.
I got some trivia related to drafting. So, when was the last time that the Bengals had a top 10 pick in the draft and used it on a defensive player?
Wow.
Because we go offense the last several times we've been top 10.
Yo, I don't.
I'll give you a hint. I can either give you the position of the player or the school they went to.
Let's go with school.
USC.
Ray Maluga? Wait.
Close. They may have actually been teammates.
Wait, this guy's a safety.
Linebacker.
Keith Rivers. Oh, man.
Rivers in 2008 was the last time that we've been top 10 and got someone on defense.
I really like Keith Rivers until Hines Ward cheap shot at him and literally he connected through Hines Ward hit him and then his helmet connected with Rivers' chin. Never been the same after that. Typical Steeler dirty shit. I like Keith.
Yeah, me too.
No, I got that.
Also, because the thing that goes along with that trivia question, so we've been drafting as an organization for 56 years, and we've drafted in the top 10 27 times. So that means close to half, 48% of the times that we're drafting, we're in the top 10. So great organizational success.
27 times. Oh, shit. Wow.
All right. This next one, this is more just to give you some stats for well, let me just ask the question first, then I'll explain. How many first round draft picks in our franchise history have been named to at least one first team All-Pro in their career? We have 67 first round draft picks in our history. How many of those 67 have been named to an All-Pro season at least once in their career?
I know Geno Atkins. That's one, right?
Yes. I didn't write down all of the people, but...
Okay, I'm just... Five.
6.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which, as far as... We have not drafted very well in most recent years. But 6 out of 67 doesn't sound like a lot. It's right around 9% of the time. 9% is actually one of the better ratings as a percentage of all of the franchises in terms of getting all pro players. But since we were talking about this, because you were saying how you feel like it's so obvious how well the Chiefs are drafting, I also pulled these same two stats for the Chiefs. So the Chiefs, out of their 61, so they've only drafted 61 first rounders. We've drafted 67. They have 14. So 22.9% of their first round draft picks end up getting an all pro season. That is good fucking scouting.
Yep.
Insane.
Yep.
And then there's a two-parter to this question. So that was first team all pro. How many of our 67 got to a Pro Bowl at all?
Probably gonna be more, you would think. 12.
18.
18. Okay.
So 27%. So a little over. It's basically like, if you think of that as basically a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So every 4 years, a first round draft pick ends up getting a Pro Bowl in their career,
Mm-hmm.
which, like, I think the percentage for that is actually not bad, but, like, that's really not that great. Like, every four
Every 4
years,
years. Yeah. Yeah.
you're drafting a player in the first round that actually ends up being a Pro Bowler. That's not often enough for my liking.
What's the
And
juice?
26 out of 61. So 43% of their players that they draft. Like, it's not really half, but 4 out of 10, if you draft, like, every 10 years and
Mm-hmm.
4 of those guys end up being Pro Bowlers, is really
Mm-hmm.
good.
That's really good. Yeah. Wow. Wow. You see the
That's all.
differences. You see the differences between the Chiefs and then you got the Bengals. Like,
And the draft, really hitting on guys in the draft, is the easiest way to not have to pay free agents a ton of money.
sure.
We keep trying to get these discount guys on defense, especially, and drafting really well. You get guys for 4 years on very, very cheap cash, and it's the easiest way to get out. It's not easiest, but it's the quickest way to get out of the situation we're in. Is just hit on the guys that you pick.
Exactly. Hit on some prospects that you know that can contribute, that are actually good, that they actually have good film. Quick, no disrespect, but stop drafting these great value ass motherfuckers. With all due respect. Oh my god.
We're not drafting like projects. I
Yes.
mean, there's still
Yeah.
time. Miles Murphy could be elite for all we know, but I know he got hurt. Year 2, he's still coming off an injury a little bit, but like we took a first round for that level of project is just not smart decision making.
I'm getting to think that we were all probably a little too high on Duke Tobin. I still think
Maybe.
I still think he's like,
Stinking it up.
yeah, I don't think he's like terrible, but I don't think he like looks deep into like the prospect's profile. I think he just looks at it and say, in the next probably 4 years he can develop into a great player. But I'm like, guy, this is the NFL, and you're the Cincinnati Bengals, and you say that you want to contend for a Super Bowl. We need to have these players ready, like probably a year, like almost a year or two. We're not gonna wait 5 years. Why you want to wait? Like the
Right.
drafted Brian Cook out of UC, go Bearcats. He contributed right away as a rookie, and I knew that because he was a solid college player. And I'm like, that's a damn good draft pick. And I was like, look at the Kansas City Chiefs knowing how to draft players. Bengals, yeah, Miles Murphy. Yeah, he's young, but he's only 21. Yeah, he is, and I think he has potential. But it's like, okay, but all right, whatever.
We didn't need. Last year was not, after watching Trey Hendrickson be the only one that could create a pressure,
Yeah.
and then going into the draft and being like, let's draft a guy that probably won't get a pressure for us for 2 years, and then Trey Hendrickson will probably be gone by then. So I sure hope that he's good, because he might be the only one that we have.
We got McKinley Jackson. We're hinging our hope on first round draft pick project and then a third round draft pick out of Texas A&M.
Dark decisions.
Wow. Way to go, Duke. Way to go. Man, this podcast has run long, but I think it's much needed. It's much needed on the Monday. Usually we do these on Wednesday, but I think it's a good idea that we get out all of our frustration and emotion the first day of the new week so we can have a positive week down the road, and then we can hopefully the Bengals can win on Sunday night against the Giants. Maybe not. If it doesn't happen, then I might go demon mode. But if it does happen, the Bengals win, I'm going to be happy in this Reaction podcast. Either way, you're going to get probably a lot of clicks on that podcast because you guys really love me when I yell, and then you guys don't love me when I'm positive and happy, like last week when we beat the Panthers. Like, what more do you want from me? But I do appreciate you guys listening to this podcast, as always. Tommy, you'll be back next week. Hopefully, we get a recap, a win. If not, then this podcast has been longer. If this podcast has been long, I feel like next week's podcast could be even longer because we're going to talk about the future, and then we might be talking about maybe somebody getting fired. Not Zach Taylor, but probably defensive coordinator, Blue, unfortunately. Or maybe others. Who knows? Who knows? Anything else before we leave out of here?
Nope. Thanks for letting me take an hour and 40 minutes here Monday again.
Listen, man, I think it was just right. I think we needed this. And I was going to probably go watch Monday Night Football, watch the Chiefs potentially go 5-0, even though they haven't looked good. But hey, they have elite coaching, elite defensive coordinator, a solid O-line, a great quarterback, which the Bengals do have that, and Joe Burrow, and a good offensive line. But the Chiefs are decimated with some injuries, but they still find ways to win because they got smart-minded coaches, something the Bengals don't have right now. All right, Tommy, I'm out. We're out, guys. Who Dey? Hang in there. I don't know if I can promise better days ahead, but we'll see. All right, we're out.